Hi everyone and welcome to week 9. I'm Heather Brandon, your course instructor, and hope things are going well with you. This week we are really talking about scoring the QRI, but before I jump in with that, I want to update you on a few upcoming assignments. We do have a few readings for this week. First of all, QRI chapters 7 through 13, which are going to go through all of the nuts and bolts for scoring the assessments you gave with your student last week. There's also a brief article, just 7 pages from the Journal of Adolescent and Adult Literacy about how assessment should and shouldn't be used to drive instruction, and another article that is about what struggling readers really need, and it will help you identify a profile for your reader as well, and talks about common profiles. So both of those are great articles that should hopefully help you as you analyze your student data from the QRI. Assignments due this week, we don't have too many things actually due. The fifth and final WAPR for the first student is due this week, October 26th by midnight. Additionally, we need that fieldwork requirement parent permission form. Those are the only pieces that are due this week. However, you should start thinking about session 6 with your new students, since that's happening next week. And we have the big RTI plan assignment that is going to be due on November 9th. You're going to want to start reviewing the materials and talking with your group on that. Speaking of upcoming assignments, I just kind of wanted to walk you through the next 3 weeks so you really understand what's due and when, and you can adhere to those deadlines. So this week, WAPR 5 parent permission form. I just said that, you got it. Week 10, due November 2nd, we are going to have a brief participation activity, which is a forum discussion. We're going to be reading about content area literacy and starting to think about the difference between adolescent readers and emergent readers. So your forum will be discussing your approach and how it's going to differ from the emergent versus the adolescent reader, and that's going to be important because we are switching to an older reader next week. You will also have your 6th session, the first one with your new student. It is going to be focused on the affective domain. We always want to start with that domain, get to know our student, get to know their interests, really find ways that we can engage them in future sessions. WAPR number 6, question mark. I am contemplating, this is a first in the history of Heather Brandon as a course instructor, of only having you submit the artifacts and not the full WAPR. So I will let you know my final decision next week, but given the fact that you guys are doing so well and really excelling in this course and continuing to submit really high quality work, I am considering just having you submit the artifacts next week and not do the whole full write-up. So stay tuned for that. And then there's no video since it's just the affective domain we're working on. Then week 11, due November 9th, that's a pretty big week for us, which is why I wanted to lighten your load a little bit on week 10 so you have more time to work on that RTI plan. So week 11, you're going to need to give your 7th session. You're also going to have WAPR number 7. I won't be modifying that assignment at all since it will be on the QRI. You will need to do the artifacts and the write-up and the plan and the reflection and everything. And there will be a video since it is the QRI. And your RTI plan is due. So week 11 is a very busy week. Please plan accordingly. It is 3 weeks away, which is why I'm giving you plenty of notice. So thinking about the switch from our younger student to our older student, I love this chart in the core resource. I believe it's page 12 and 13. So this is a great chart that is your assessment sequence for primary grade students, and this highlights grades K through 3, which would be about the age range of the student you are working with now. And it pretty much shows you the progression of assessments and the order you give them. So just like we did, you start out at the level of phonemic awareness, phonological awareness, then you build up to phonics, spelling, sight words, word recognition, and then getting into oral reading and comprehension. So, if they're doing if they're successful in each of these preliminary assessments, then you keep going and it shows you, where within the year is it appropriate to give these assessments and the frequency. Now you'll notice that when we switch and we look at our upper grade student, we're actually going to start with the comprehension slash oral reading. So for us, we're going to start with the QRI instead of ending with the QRI. For the younger students, you want to start with the more basic rudimentary assessments and then build up. But here we're actually doing the opposite. We're starting with the most complex assessment and then going down based on, the assessment results from that. So we're going to start with the QRI and then go down and look at some of these areas if needed. But for an upper grade student, you may not need to look at phonemic awareness. It just depends on how the oral reading is, how the word recognition is, how the phonics are. That would be probably the last assessment you would give. So I just wanted to draw your attention to this resource tool and get you thinking about how your approach is going to be different and how our sequence of assessments is going to be different. And again, I did put the scope and sequence assessment guide up on Titanium so you can see our 5 sessions with that older student, what exactly you're going to be doing. So first we have effective domain where you will give the QRI word list, then we'll move on to the QRI and then go from there. Focus a little bit more on comprehension than we did with the younger student. Also throw in some vocabulary, and then the last sessions give you some flexibility to give assessments of your choosing. So for session 6 that you want to start planning and prepping, very similar to your first session, we're going to do an interest inventory. You're going to give the MRP again if you're grades 1 through 6. If you're above 6th grade, there's an adolescent motivation to read profile that I will put on Titanium next week. You will give the QRI word list, make sure you start 2 grade levels below, and then you'll have a parent interview or survey again, and no video due that week. All right, the big assignment coming up that is on everybody's minds is the RTI plan. Again, you do have 3 weeks to get this plan done. So you do have plenty of time, and you'll be working with a group. So you'll have the support of group members. There are a lot of pieces to this assignment, but it's not a very lengthy assignment. You're really just filling out a template, a chart, if you will. So there's not a lot of writing involved, but there will be a lot of strategic thinking that is required of this assignment. And I do love this assignment because I think it is a very authentic way for you to practice skills you will need as a literacy specialist. So we came up with a scenario. I've been working with Dr. Kaesler on this, and she actually made the screencast for this assignment. And so you'll get to listen to her in those screencasts. But we really thought about, okay, as a literacy specialist, what is a big part of your role? And for me, it was taking all of the school data for all of the students, K-5, really looking at who is not making growth, who is not making progress, giving those students diagnostic assessments just like you did with your first 5 sessions, and then planning what are my tier 2 interventions going to be? What are my tier 3 interventions going to be? How are the students going to be grouped? What is going to be the focus of my instruction with those students? How frequently am I going to meet them? Where am I going to meet them? Who's going to meet with them? All of those logistics. So we have just done the diagnostic piece. So that's what you would do at the school level. And then from there, you need to really look at that data, think strategically, plan your groups, plan your focus, and go from there. So that's what this assignment is going to be doing. The resources I have compiled in a folder on Titanium called RTI Plan Folder. There are a bunch of links. So first of all are the screencasts that explain the assignment and set up the scenario for you. Here is the link for our Google Doc. Remember, you should be inputting your students' data in this Google Doc because those are going to be the students that we're using to make the RTI plan. So we're going to pretend that, those are the students in our school that have been identified for possible interventions, and you're going to have to work with your teammates, your fellow RTI specialists, to go from there to set up your intervention plan. Now, these pieces are fabulous. They come from Vanderbilt University's IRIS Center for Intervention, and they have full modules on RTI and reading instruction within the RTI framework. So we would like for you to go through the whole module for RTI. That's going to give you plenty of background on RTI and plenty of background for this assignment, as well as the module, so all the way to page 11 for the reading instruction part 3. So those are the links for the modules you'll need to go through. Other parts of the assignment you will need in the RTI plan folder. First are your group assignments. So I tried to, at random, assign you with a group that's different from your group presentation. So at the end of this course, when you get your survey and it says, did the instructor give you different learning opportunities and different groups and whatnot, you can say, yeah, I had, 2 different groups I worked with and I learned from many of my colleagues. And I think the more people you have to work with, probably the better. So, and I know you're going to learn a lot from each other because it seems like everyone taking the class this semester is really committed and dedicated and is doing a really great job and working really hard. So I'm excited for you to work with some new people, learn from each other. I think it'll be great. So please check out the group assignments. I have included the emails on the group assignments for your teammates. However, I'm using the Fullerton emails that I have. So this means that A, you need to check that email, and B, if that's not your preferred email, you need to contact your teammates and let them know, hey, this is the best way to get a hold of me. Also, there are templates there for both parts of the assignment. The first part is to make your RTI plan grid for your Tier 2 interventions. You might have several different grids for several different groups of students. Then the second template is for your rationale. So you as a team need to pick one of your groupings and you need to explain why that plan makes sense based on the assessment data. There's also a scoring guide and a rubric, some plan outlines that were used in that RTI PowerPoint. So there are a lot of pieces to this assignment, but when you break it down, it's just a grid for each of your groups that you have compiled of your students for Tier 2 services, and then it is a grid that gives a rationale for why your team did what you did. So that is all I have as far as upcoming assignments. Please join me back in part 2 where we talk about how to summarize results from the QRI, identify strengths and needs, and ultimately score that QRI.